Let's talk about one of the most important discoveries in cancer biology, the realization that cancer isn't just about cells acquiring the ability to grow, it's about them losing the built-in brakes that normally prevent uncontrolled growth. Every cell in your body has multiple systems specifically designed to stop cancer from developing. Understanding these brake systems and how UV radiation damages them gives us crucial insight into both how cancer develops and how we might prevent it. The most famous of these brake systems is controlled by a protein called P53, which I mentioned earlier. This protein is so important that it's been called the guardian of the genome. P53 constantly monitors the cell for signs of stress or damage. When it detects problems, particularly DNA damage, it can halt the cell cycle to give repair systems time to work. If the damage is too severe to repair, P53 triggers apoptosis, essentially telling the cell to self-destruct for the greater good of the organism. Think of P53 as an emergency brake in a car that's speeding down a hill. If the car starts going too fast or something goes wrong, the emergency brake can stop it before disaster strikes. This system is incredibly effective. In fact, more than half of all human cancers have mutations that disable or weaken P53 function. Cancer cells need to get rid of this brake to grow uncontrollably. Here's where UV radiation creates a perfect storm. It can mutate the P53 gene itself. When UV damages the DNA sequence that codes for P53, the cell loses its most important brake system. Now, when future damage occurs, the cell can't properly respond. It can't halt division for repairs. It can't trigger self-destruction even when severely damaged. It's like cutting the brake lines on that car. Now there's nothing to stop uncontrolled growth. But P53 isn't the only brake system. Cells have multiple proteins and pathways that regulate growth and division. There are proteins that detect when cells are getting too crowded and signal them to stop dividing. There are systems that count how many times a cell has divided and eventually force it to stop and die, preventing immortal cell lines from emerging. There are checkpoints in the cell division process that verify everything is ready before allowing the next step to proceed. UV radiation can damage many of these systems simultaneously. It might mutate genes that control cell cycle checkpoints, allowing cells to skip safety checks during division. It might damage proteins that sense overcrowding, letting cells ignore normal population limits. It might affect the molecular counters that limit cell lifespan. Each brake that fails makes it easier for cells to progress toward cancer. What's particularly elegant about these brake systems is that they're redundant. You have multiple overlapping protections so that if one fails, others can compensate. This is why cancer typically requires multiple mutations. The cell has to disable several different brake systems before it can become truly cancerous. But this redundancy also means that intense or repeated UV exposure, which can damage multiple systems at once or over time, is especially dangerous. Understanding these brake systems has actually led to new approaches in cancer prevention and treatment. If we can identify when brake systems are beginning to fail, but cancer hasn't fully developed yet, we might be able to intervene. There's research into drugs that can restore or enhance P53 function, for example, or that can reinforce other brake systems before they fail completely. From a prevention standpoint, this mechanical view of cancer helps clarify why sun protection is so vital. You're not just preventing damage in general, you're specifically protecting the molecular brake systems that keep cell growth under control. Every sunburn is an opportunity for these brakes to be damaged. Every time you use sunscreen, you're maintaining the function of systems that have evolved specifically to prevent cancer. When you think about sun protection in these terms, as actively preserving your body's built-in cancer prevention machinery, it becomes clearer why dermatologists and oncologists take it so seriously.